Did you know that more than 55 million people around the world are currently living with dementia, and that number is expected to soar to 139 million by 2050? In this video, we'll uncover the 6 silent symptoms of dementia you need to be aware of, because recognizing them early can be crucial for timely intervention. And don't worry, we'll also share 3 actionable steps you can take right now to protect your brain health and that of your loved ones. But there's more. We'll explore how small lifestyle changes may help delay dementia's onset and boost cognitive function overall. Before we get into the symptoms, let's quickly discuss why dementia can be so difficult to detect in its early stages. Dementia is not a specific disease, but a group of symptoms that affect memory, thinking, and social abilities severely enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, but there are other types like vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and more. What makes dementia particularly challenging is that its early signs can be subtle and easily mistaken for natural aging. That's why it's important to understand these early warning signs so you can seek help as early as possible.
What is dementia? In the third year of my medical program, I was having a lot of sleep issues. And probably 50% of the nights I was having an issue with insomnia. I couldn't fall asleep or I couldn't stay asleep. And after a few months of this, I was noticing I was really starting to struggle to find words. So one day at lunch, one of my classmates, now colleagues, he said to me, he's like, "You're usually quite articulate and smart, but lately you have been repeating your words or you're stuttering and you're stumbling a lot. Is everything okay?" The researchers describe impairments in memory, language, attention, visual spatial cognition, such as spatial orientation, executive function, and mood. Now, in another research paper, they highlight 9 particular risk factors. This paper is called Dementia Prevention, Intervention, and Care, 2020 report of the Lancet Commission, and they describe a growing body of evidence supports the 9 potentially modifiable risk factors for dementia modeled by this Lancet Commission. They describe less education, hypertension, hearing impairment, smoking, obesity, depression, physical inactivity, diabetes, and low social contact. So it's interesting that these are considered risk factors for dementia.
Now that we know why dementia is often hard to detect early on, let's look at the 6 warning signs of dementia you need to keep on your radar. The first warning sign is memory loss. We all forget things occasionally, but when memory loss begins to interfere with daily life, it can be a red flag. This isn't just about forgetting where you left your keys, it's about forgetting things that are vital to daily functioning. Memory loss in early dementia typically involves recent events. For example, someone might forget important dates or appointments, only to remember them later. They may start repeating the same questions or stories without realizing they've already told them. Forgetting names of close family members or friends, or struggling to recall conversations that happened only a few hours ago can be a telling sign. It's not just the small things that slip through the cracks either. Over time, memory loss can begin to impact work performance or even relationships. Loved ones might notice the person starting to rely heavily on memory aids like sticky notes or reminder alarms to keep track of tasks they could easily handle before. This type of memory loss should not be brushed aside as normal aging. If someone you know is forgetting important tasks or details and it's affecting their ability to function day to day, this could be one of the first indicators of dementia. Consulting a healthcare professional at this point is crucial for early diagnosis and management.
Warning sign number 1 is memory loss. So difficulty organizing and actually planning things. People seem a bit scattered.
Before we continue, please note that this content is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Another early indicator of dementia is struggling with routine activities. While it's common to occasionally forget how to do something you haven't done in a while, individuals with early dementia may find it difficult to complete tasks that once came naturally to them. Tasks like cooking a favorite meal, driving to a familiar location, or following a familiar routine can suddenly become confusing or overwhelming. For example, Someone who has been cooking the same recipe for years might suddenly forget steps, or they may become flustered when trying to follow simple instructions. This can be particularly noticeable at work, where multitasking is often required. People with dementia may find themselves unable to manage deadlines, prioritize tasks, or even remember how to use tools and technologies they've been familiar with for years. Even in social settings, they may begin avoiding tasks that were once enjoyable because they can no longer handle the steps involved. For instance, a person who once enjoyed a weekly card game might avoid it because they've forgotten the rules, but they may not admit it due to embarrassment. Difficulty performing tasks that were once second nature is not something to ignore. If someone close to you is struggling with familiar tasks, especially if they're also showing signs of memory loss, this is a major early warning sign of dementia.
The third is troubles with general spatial abilities. So for example, getting lost when driving around town. My grandma, who has Alzheimer's, for example, one time went out for a walk and wasn't home for several hours because she was completely lost, disoriented in her own neighborhood, and her husband had to go out and look for her, and some neighbors actually found her pretty far away from home. So that's a very worrying aspect of dementia, in this case, Alzheimer's.
The third silent symptom of dementia is increased confusion about your whereabouts and time. Forgetting what day it is happens to all of us, but when confusion about time and place becomes a regular occurrence, it can signal something more concerning. A person with early dementia may lose track of time, dates, or seasons. They may forget how they arrived somewhere or what they were supposed to be doing. What's more alarming is when this disorientation happens in familiar places. For instance, someone might become confused or lost on their way to a place they visited many times before, like a nearby grocery store or a friend's house. This confusion can extend to appointments as well. For example, they might show up at the wrong time for a doctor's visit or completely forget a scheduled meeting, despite reminders or previous confirmations. The passage of time can also become distorted, and they might confuse past events with the present, asking questions like, "Did we go on vacation yesterday?" when the event took place weeks ago. Disorientation and confusion about time and place, particularly in familiar settings, are significant indicators of dementia. If this behavior becomes common, it's crucial to seek medical attention, as early detection can help slow the progression of the disease.
The sixth is confusion and disorientation. So the most severe being, like, for example, what I gave about my grandma with Alzheimer's. People are actually walking out their apartment or their home and they get lost for hours. And then they get quite alarmed or quite agitated because they have no clue where they are, how they got there, and they have no clue how to get home. So that is a very traditional dementia sort of scenario.
We all make questionable decisions now and then, but consistent poor judgment is the next warning sign of dementia on our list. People with dementia often show poor judgment in financial matters. This could mean giving large sums of money to telemarketers or online scams, purchasing unnecessary items impulsively, or mismanaging their personal finances. For instance, someone who used to be frugal may suddenly start making extravagant purchases without thinking through the consequences. Personal hygiene is another area where poor judgment can become apparent. People with dementia might neglect bathing, brushing their teeth, or dressing appropriately for the weather. For example, they might go outside in winter without a coat or wear several layers of clothing on a hot summer day. They may also start eating unhealthy foods or neglect their diet altogether. This change in judgment can be dangerous, as it may lead to safety issues like forgetting to turn off the stove, leaving the house unlocked, or getting into risky situations while driving. If someone you know is suddenly making poor decisions, especially when it comes to finances or personal safety, this could be an early warning sign of dementia. Poor judgment is not just about minor mistakes. It can lead to significant safety concerns and requires immediate attention.
Troubles with general spatial abilities. So for example, getting lost when driving around town. My grandma, who has Alzheimer's, for example, one time went out for a walk and wasn't home for several hours because she was completely lost, disoriented in her own neighborhood, and her husband had to go out and look for her, and some neighbors actually found her pretty far away from home. So that's a very worrying aspect of dementia, in this case, Alzheimer's.
Before we move on, If you're looking to dive deeper into the risk factors of dementia, be sure to subscribe to the QuickTime newsletter linked below. Each week, we share expert-backed tips, delicious recipes, and actionable steps to help you live longer and feel your best, delivered right to your inbox. Another early sign of dementia is withdrawing from work or social activities. This may happen because the person finds it increasingly difficult to engage or keep up with conversations, projects, or hobbies that they once enjoyed. You may notice that they avoid work-related meetings, social gatherings, or activities they once loved. For example, a person who was once the life of the party may suddenly seem distant and uninterested in attending events. They may also avoid hobbies like gardening, reading, or even watching TV because they struggle to follow the storyline or remember what they were doing. This withdrawal often happens because they're aware of their declining cognitive abilities and feel embarrassed or frustrated by their inability to perform as they once did. Isolation becomes a coping mechanism to avoid being judged or questioned by others. If someone close to you begins withdrawing from social or work-related activities without a clear reason, it's important to consider the possibility of early dementia. Don't assume they've simply lost interest. It could be an early sign of cognitive decline.
Sign number 2 is personality changes. So, interesting facet of dementia, or even, for example, Alzheimer's, is sometimes people have significant levels of agitation or anger. They may have other symptoms of depression or anxiety as well.
The next symptom of early dementia is a sudden change in mood or personality. These changes can happen gradually or seem to come out of nowhere. A person with dementia might become unusually suspicious, irritable, or fearful. For example, someone who was once patient and easygoing might suddenly have frequent outbursts of anger or frustration, often over minor issues. They might also become paranoid, suspecting others of stealing or plotting against them without any real evidence. You may also notice them becoming withdrawn, anxious, or even depressed. They might lose interest in things they once loved, or they may become more clingy and dependent on their caregivers. These mood swings can be confusing for both the person experiencing them and the people around them. If you notice drastic changes in someone's mood or personality, this could be an early sign of dementia. These changes are not just normal emotional fluctuations. They are often indicative of the brain's declining ability to regulate emotions and cope with stress.
Number 2 is personality changes. So, interesting facet of dementia, or even, for example, Alzheimer's, is sometimes people have significant levels of agitation or anger. They may have other symptoms of depression or anxiety as well.
Now that we've covered the 6 silent symptoms of dementia, let's talk about 3 practical steps you can take to help slow down cognitive decline and support brain health. Number 1, engage in regular mental and physical exercise. Regular physical activity like walking or swimming helps maintain healthy blood flow to the brain, while mental exercises like puzzles, learning a new language, or taking up a new hobby can keep your brain sharp. Number 2, maintain a healthy diet. Eating a balanced diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats can support brain health. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fish and flaxseed, are particularly beneficial for brain function. Number 3, stay socially active. Interacting with friends, family, and engaging in social activities can stimulate your brain and reduce the risk of dementia. Staying socially active also helps reduce feelings of isolation, which can contribute to cognitive decline. We've discussed the 6 silent symptoms of dementia that you need to watch out for. But did you know that certain lifestyle changes can greatly reduce your risk? Watch this next video where we unveil 7 daily habits to prevent dementia.